every piece of advice on digital etiquette tells you to keep your texts short. 126 students at Binghamton University just complicated that. They were shown the same text message twice, same words, same sender. The two versions differed by a single character. One of them ended with a period, and that was the version they rated as less sincere. Almost every piece of advice on how to be elegant online rests on the idea that brevity is the refined choice, and the research on what brevity actually communicates has been sitting in a psychology journal since 2015. The team was led by Celia Klin, a psychology professor and associate dean at Binghamton's Harpur College. The paper's first author was Danielle Gunraj. They built 16 short exchanges between two friends and kept the structure identical throughout. One person made a statement and then asked something. "Dave gave me his extra tickets. Wanna come?" The other person answered with a single word, "Okay," or "sure," or "yeah," or "yup." Half the participants saw these laid out as text messages on a phone screen, and half saw them handwritten on loose leaf paper. In one version of each reply, the word ended with a period, and in the other, it ended with no punctuation at all. On paper, the difference disappeared. The period only meant something on a screen. Gunraj and her colleagues were careful about the claim they made. They didn't argue that a period means insincerity. They argued that punctuation has become one of the cues people use to carry the social information, that eye contact and tone of voice and the pause before answering used to carry. The period isn't rude in itself. It stands in for something, and on a screen, the thing it stands in for is distance. Klin's team went on to find that the same one-word reply with an exclamation mark reads as more sincere rather than less. Emojis operate in the same register. They carry warmth in a medium that strips everything else away, which is why the knowledge graph of digital communication treats them in the same cluster as punctuation choices. A period contracts, an exclamation mark or a well-placed emoji opens. I bring this up because of the advice. If you go looking for guidance on how to be elegant online, you'll find a very consistent set of instructions. Keep your replies short, don't double text, let him wait. It appears on channel after channel in slightly different wording, and it rests on an intuition that is entirely sound in a room. Restraint reads as composure. The woman who doesn't rush to fill a silence, who answers a beat later than expected, who lets a question sit, registers as someone in control of herself. That intuition is correct in person and almost exactly backwards on a phone. In a room, restraint arrives with everything else attached. Your face is carrying half of it. The pause before you speak is legible as thought because the other person can watch you think. Strip all of that away, and what remains is 4 words and a punctuation mark, and the receiver has to construct your entire state of mind out of that. She does construct it. She just doesn't construct the version you intended. In November of 2024, David Fang and Yiran Zhang at Stanford and Sam Maglio at the University of Toronto published 8 pre-registered studies in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, General, with 5,306 participants between them. They ran surveys, lab experiments, field experiments, and an archival analysis of real Tinder conversations. People who used texting abbreviations were rated as less sincere, and they were less likely to get a reply at all. The mechanism was effort. Abbreviations read as though the sender hadn't bothered, and people don't extend themselves for someone who appears not to have. Brevity is the thing being taught as refinement. The evidence on how brevity lands says something else. The timing habit is worth its own look. The most repeated statistic in this area is that the average person answers a text within 90 seconds. It circulates constantly and gets used to justify both anxiety and strategy. It also appears to have no source. Grammarly went looking for one, found the figure vaguely credited to a wireless industry trade association, contacted that organization directly, and was told by its own research team that they couldn't say where the number had come from. What does exist is research Google published in 2018 on how people use messaging. Participants described feeling pressure to answer within roughly 20 minutes, or by the end of that day, to avoid giving offense. That's a wide window. There's room in it for a woman who is busy or thinking or eating dinner. The strategic delay is a different thing from being unavailable. Being unavailable is a fact about your life. The strategic delay is a performance staged for one viewer, and it costs something to keep up, because you have to see the message, decide not to answer it, and then hold that decision in your head for 2 hours. That isn't composure. Composure doesn't require monitoring. The etiquette rules for modern social gatherings were all written for rooms, for arrivals, for introductions, for how long to stay and how to leave. Almost nothing in the long tradition of elegant ladies, fashion and etiquette addresses the medium where most first impressions are now actually formed, which means a generation of women have been improvising from principles never designed for a screen. Texting etiquette, or what some call netiquette, has developed faster than any formal guide has been written for it. There is one place where the old physical rules still hold, and it's the one people ignore. James Roberts and Meredith David at Baylor University surveyed 453 adults across 2 studies about phone use between romantic partners, what researchers now call phubbing, a portmanteau of phone and snubbing, and a concept that sits squarely in the literature on modern table manners and phone etiquette in shared spaces. In the second survey, of 145 people, 46% reported being snubbed by a partner in favor of a phone, and about 23% said it had caused conflict. 32% described themselves as very satisfied in the relationship. I want to be careful here because the phubbing literature has gotten complicated since. A 2023 study found that a partner's sense of being phubbed predicted lower relationship quality, while the phubbing the other partner reported actually doing did not predict much of anything. What moves the number is the felt experience of the person across the table, which is either a limitation of the research or the entire point of it, depending on how you look at it. None of this is an argument for writing longer messages. It's that the shortness was never the elegant part. What reads as composed is a message that matches the actual state of the woman sending it, warm when she's warm and quiet when she has nothing to say. What reads as cold is the woman who isn't cold at all, performing a distance she doesn't feel, and being believed. The angry period was never a rule anyone agreed to. A writer named Ben Crair described it in the New Republic in November of 2013. The researchers at Binghamton read Crair, and by the time anyone got around to testing it, the meaning had already set. If you want to keep going, this video sits in a playlist called Elegant Ladies, Fashion and Etiquette. That's where the rest of it lives. The room-based rules that still work exactly as written, and the ones that quietly stopped translating somewhere around the time we all started typing instead of speaking. Subscribing to Wealth Atelier means the next one finds you without you having to go looking, and if a particular person came to mind while you were watching, someone whose messages you've misread or who has probably misread yours, send this to her. That tends to be a more useful conversation than the one this topic usually produces.